Joining us today is one of South Africa's most interesting and colourful political figures, and that is Mr. Andile Mngxitama. I'm completely got it. I've been practicing, and I knew I was going to get it wrong. Right?
Yeah, it's a Khoisan.
It's a Khoisan thing, and you've got a Lebanese, white South African tongue. It was always going to be a disaster.
Yes.
Andile, welcome to the State of the Nation.
Thank you.
And, we want to hear from a range of voices, and we have heard from many people that one would call almost from the opposition benches. We do know, and I've said it many times on this channel, that the ANC doesn't want to speak to us, the EFF don't want to speak to us, but we do want to get other voices, right? And we've heard a lot from...
You must be doing something right.
I must be doing something right, yeah.
ANC and EFF.
Yeah, but I'm sure when elections come around, they'll want to speak to us. But anyway, and thanks to the people viewing us, our subscriber base is growing nicely. And please subscribe to the channel, just ring the bell, you'll get the reminders every time we put out another interview, and we hope that we keep them interesting. But let's deal with the man in front of us. Andile, you really, I know you were involved in social movements before, but let's talk politics for a minute. You really came to the fore when you were one of the early members of the Economic Freedom Fighters, right? When the party was established. And heading into the 2014 election, you were number 10 on their list and got into the National Assembly, only to be relieved of that position quite quickly, right?
Yes.
Take us back to your journey with the EFF, how that came about and how it ended.
I was, as you rightly point out, involved in the politics of the nation, but more social movements type arrangement. We formed something called the Landless People's Movement, which agitated for land. Now, I have been checking Julius out for a while. I wrote actually a very scathing piece when the corruption matter of his house in Sandton, breaking a 3.5 house to build a 20 million rand house whilst earning 20,000. So I was saying this is the wrong type of leadership. It's the usual African corrupt leadership, which basically destroys the future. And so I attacked him viciously then. But then when he was talking about forming EFF and I even attacked his land expropriation calls at the time, because expropriation is just like nationalization. If you nationalize under a corrupt government, people don't benefit at all. Similarly, I said his call for land expropriation was with compensation, and therefore it was going to make sure that they benefit, just like the African post-colonial leadership. But then when he said without compensation, that ended my criticism. And I said, the young people are going to flock to the EFF. And these young people want real change. Julius, I don't trust him politically. But these young people, together, we can form a movement which will force even Julius to the left. And I did some things when I went in there, working in the policy documents, their founding manifesto. I was critical in drafting it. And we put in there, cleverly, the Sankara Oath, which says, all elected members of parliament must by law use public services. Because once they are compelled by law, then if they think they must go to that hospital, we believe they will make sure that it is well taken care of. And out of their selfish interest, the nation will also benefit. So we put the Sankara Oath in the EFF manifesto. But just before we kicked out, they removed it. And then they went right in our view. They went to talk to white farmers in Paarl, and Julius said to white farmers there, no, don't worry, we don't want to expropriate all land. We only want to expropriate unused land. So it was clear to me that this is a left-talking group, but it's moving right wing. And as a consequence, I was kicked out.
So the EFF wasn't radical enough for you. So you formed your own party that contested the last election called Black First, Land First. And you got about 19,000 votes, just above there, 4,000 more than the Purple Cow Party, but about 10,000 short of putting you in Parliament, right?
Yes.
Would you say it was a successful campaign idea? What were your expectations going into 2019?
We believe that we'll get at least a seat. And once we have our 1 foot in, we'll be able to agitate from inside and create our profile to grow. So we fell short. Of course, we argue there's systematic questions of money. Elections are about money, so we didn't have the money. But also just the IEC, the way the whole counting of votes went and so on, we believe that again there we were robbed. So that's where we're sitting. We're then excluded from and we needed that entry into the parliamentary system so that we can also get resources to sustain ourselves and be able to grow our movement. We have failed, and it has put us in a very, very difficult position. No business will touch us for obvious reasons, because we have very visibly attacked the Oppenheimers and Rupert.
But it's not only them. You're telling anybody with money that fund us, but we're going to take your money away in the future.
Well, for justice,
Turkeys and Christmas, they don't vote.
That's true. The ruling class, we have positioned ourselves as the enemies of the ruling class. And in South Africa, the ruling class is the class that has the money. But it does fund. You can see even EFF get money from capital because capital safeguards its interests. This is why they give money to political parties, even those that claim to be about ending white capital. But we are mavericks in a sense that we mean what we say. We went to Parliament and confronted the Oppenheimers very physically, which was a terrifying thing for the ruling class. That meant that no one can touch us. There was a lawyer, an advocate that used to give us money. That man was followed by SARS, bankrupted, basically.
Unjustly.
We believe so, because they could see the trace of money that he was funding these radical groups. We also took some very problematic positions. We defended the Guptas. We defended Jacob Zuma.
Okay, can we just stop there for a second? Because you defended the Guptas and Jacob Zuma, and one can legitimately say that they were nobody is a bigger capitalist than a thief. He's the ultimate capitalist, isn't he? Now, that guy's making a business out of money. Right? In other words, I'm saying, if I start a business tomorrow and I employ 50 people, I'm at least providing 50 livelihoods. But if I'm stealing money, I'm collapsing the system. I'm actually being the most rapacious capitalist that there is. But yet you were in defense.
You know who fits that? It's Marcus Jooste, actually.
Yeah.
If you look at the scale of his corruption.
Perfect. So we got Marcus Jooste, we agree. So where does what Marcus Jooste did differ to what the Guptas did?
Well, the Guptas have not been found guilty.
Really? And Marcus Jooste been found guilty? By what court?
He's been dragged to Germany now.
Yeah, but he hasn't been found guilty.
In South Africa,
so it's either guilty or not guilty.
Yeah, but
so we've got to say, if we're going to say the Guptas haven't been found guilty, one then also has to say that Jooste hasn't been found guilty.
Jooste is not. We have tangible evidence about the scale of his corruption.
Yes, and the Zondo Commission gave about 7 volumes of tangible proof that the Guptas were involved in So, what I'm saying is we're either going to go by the book and say we're not going to call this one a thief until he's found guilty, but that one's okay to call him a thief even though he hasn't been found guilty. I'm saying one or the other, isn't it?
No. The truth of the matter is that we have Marcus Jooste sitting in court.
Yes.
In South Africa, our own institutions have said he has removed billions of money.
Okay, but sorry, just to those very same institutions want to get the Guptas sitting in court, right? So I'm saying both bad parties, bad actors in both cases, I'm not denying. But it's unfair to say this one's a crook, right? Even though he's not been found guilty yet. That one isn't a crook because he hasn't been found guilty yet. So I can't see
what would have worked is if the same kind of energy and demonization had gone to both the Guptas, Jooste, the Oppenheimers. By the way, the Oppenheimers have their own private international airport, which they found they got through going to the ANC, not government. Nicky and his father went to the ANC and told the ANC that they want a private international airport, which they got, but they are not perceived as corrupt. And so I'm saying that one of the moves that we made was to say the enemy of my enemy is my friend.
Okay.
And the Guptas were enemies of white capital in South Africa.
So that makes him your friend.
They make him my friend.
Even though they're stealing money that should have gone, that's public money, that was robbed from, we understand, we're not talking about the most efficient government, but we're talking about a government then that can't keep the lights on, right?
Yeah.
Because of that money stolen, and because they were doing that, and because they were the enemy of your enemy.
You know what is interesting?
That's okay.
The time the Guptas were supposedly in control of Eskom, this is the same time that load shedding was ended. I mean, that's for me the most interesting thing. That
right.
Under the Guptas' so-called state capture, Eskom provided lights for the nation.
Okay, but it seems
and ran a profit as well.
Yeah, but it seems to me that I'm struggling to see whether the problems you have are ideological or race. It seems
race is ideological. I will never go with white capital.
Yes.
Even if it proclaims itself to be progressive.
Right.
Because white capital is by definition unethical, given how capital was accumulated in South Africa through land theft, through slavery, through creating Africans into a working class which is excluded. That's how you guys got all the privileges. It is out of systematic oppression, exclusion, exploitation of the black majority. The good life you live as white people today is out of unethical privileges that you earned as a consequence of oppressing and excluding black people. And you have not accounted for this. There is not even a plan by any white person to say, we benefited unjustly. And we have these resources. What are we doing to repair the damage that we caused to get the good life that we live?
Okay, so let's move forward to that. Because here we are, all this time later, I'm living the good life.
Unearned privileges.
Unearned. People just pitch up and give me money, right? So the question is, according to you, what should I be doing? And what should white people that are watching us today be doing to make good?
See, that's interesting that I'm raising issues of injustice. You're putting the burden of redress once more on me. Okay,
so can I accept the burden? Let's say it's according to me. What is the best thing that I could do right now to address some of this ill-gotten privilege that I earn? Surely the best thing that I could do in this country is to put those ill-gotten skills, ill-gotten wealth to work to create a better life for more South Africans. Pay my taxes, right? Work as hard as I can, employ people, take risk, etc. I can't think of anything else that I could do that would be a better way to...
So it's business as usual.
Well, no, I'm saying, but accelerated. I don't know. Somebody stands behind me with a whip.
What about the fact that you have the JSE blacks represented only by 3%?
Well, no, that's a lie. And I'll tell you why that's a lie. It's a lie, and it's a straightforward lie, right? That's like saying that whites own the majority of the land, right? And then disregard the land that's owned by the state. To say that whites own X% of the JSE means that what we are saying is that the majority of the investment on the JSE belongs in the hands of pension funds, retirement funds, etc. Right? Funds, right? Where the majority of the contributors to those funds and the majority of the money in those funds belongs to the people that are the policy holders, etc. Right?
So
and
pensions, basically.
Yes, pensions. Yeah, your normal insurance that ends up on the stock exchange. Not all of it, but a big chunk of it. Now, one can't say that because this money is administered by this asset management company, it's white money. It's not white money in any stretch, by any stretch. I mean, that would be like saying PIC money is white money. That's ridiculous.
So basically,
so what I'm saying is your percentage claim is laughable.
No,
right? All I'm saying is that because the majority
we are owners of the economy by virtue of pensions.
Yes, well, that's where the majority of the investment on the stock exchange derives from. It's not private ownership. Go and have a look at the numbers. It's not even close, right? Not even close. The big money flows come from pensions. And that's like saying that all those pension funds, right, which now you go into most businesses now, the majority of businesses, we're not talking shareholding, we're talking about contributors to those pension funds. Right? So
these are workers,
yes,
employed people. But if you look again, yes, even the PIC itself, which companies get funding to where this money is put into, but the PIC is white capital.
That where they've invested in,
yes,
but they haven't. And that money has to be paid back. And that money is meant to be managed for the benefit of the shareholders. And who's the shareholders of the PIC? The Republic of South Africa, right? And according to the recent census, that is about 95% non-white. So what I'm saying is that it's ludicrous.
So we are capitalists by virtue of owning a bit of pension. That's what you are saying.
And that is the reality. That is the reality.
So pension for capital for white people is private ownership of capital. Capital for black people is our pension funds.
No, I'm saying for
that makes us capitalists.
Whether you like it or not, it does make you a capitalist. But what I'm saying is there's a mix.
Very strange you're capitalist here.
Why? It's the way it works everywhere in the world. Where does it work differently?
Capital is ownership of the means of production.
Okay, let's talk about the means of production, okay, like it's 1965. Let me take my business. Right? I derive my income largely by managing events. I use software that was developed somewhere, I don't know, it's a subscription service, international subscription service. I no longer have a server. I no longer have an internet line. I no longer have anything except a few dusty old laptops and a few desks and chairs, right? It's not like I have a mill. I don't have a machine here, right? So where does that means of production reside? So you're
a capitalist without the means of production?
Yes.
Basically.
Correct. And so is about 90% plus of South African business, right? That means of production. And that's why, for example, we've seen the decimation of our textile industry, because it was just easier to import it from overseas. So now that person who is selling those T-shirts to the ANC so that they can give it out at the election rallies, that person that the ANC is buying it from is just a middleman. He doesn't produce those T-shirts. He sends his order off, right? And next thing, a ship arrives, and here comes his T-shirts. Where is the means of production there?
So basically what we are arguing is that because of technological development and the change
and modernization,
there are no capitalists who hold means of production.
Not no capitalists. I'm saying it's not the argument it once was.
Well, in South Africa, who owns the banking system? Who owns the mines?
Well,
who owns manufacturing?
That's very easy because most of those are publicly listed companies, right? And one can see exactly who owns it, right? And you're going to go along and you're going to see that in those cases, there's a minority of direct share.
Let's take banking.
Yes, let's take banking.
Big five.
Let's look at the big five, right?
Yeah.
Very simply, go and look because they have to publish, by law, they have to publish these details, which you've obviously had a look at and I've had a look at. And there are a couple of direct shareholders where you've got a name. Those are usually, in the single figures because we're talking about multi-billion rand organizations, right? The direct shareholding is usually quite limited and the bulk of the shareholding is fund managed. Who are the funds managing the money on behalf of? Whoever wants to go and contribute to those funds. Where's that money coming from? In most cases, through pensions, investments, etc., that people are making. But to say that all of those fund money is white is ludicrous. It's crazy because it doesn't exist.
So basically, white capital rides on the funds of black contributors to pension, if we were to look at
among others. Yeah.
So, but
that's the bulk of it, is what I'm saying.
But if you look at who benefits from those arrangements,
are you angry because maybe 3 or 4% is directly owned by some white family trust? Is that where your problem lies?
It's not just 4 or 5% of the South African economy.
Look, Andile, let's take a real world reality here. We live in a world, an interconnected world. These rich people, rich white people that you have an issue with, right? They know that you exist. They know that Julius Malema exists, right? They know that they've got money, okay? They've got more money than they can ever spend. Do you think they're going to leave it in South Africa? Not a shot. Their money's already gone, right? I'm saying, now, are we going to try and get that money back? Good luck. You're not going to find it because it's sitting in Bermuda or it's sitting in some safe haven already, right? Those shares have been offloaded to those funds that I'm talking about, right? Which are owned by all of us, one way or another. I don't know if you have a life policy. That money is ending up holding shares in those companies. That's exactly what's happening to it. They're not sitting in the bank saying, oh, we're going to keep this here just in case he dies. No, they're investing that money. And they're investing it in those very companies you have a problem with. Right?
I have a problem with these companies for a very simple reason. They were created and continue to benefit out of the exclusion of the black majority. You don't have a plan to bring the black majority into the mainstream, to bring the black majority into benefiting from this wealth which is created in South Africa out of an unjust system. So this is my only question. How do you, as white people, white business, pay some kind of reparations to address the past injustices? That is the bottom line.
Okay, and then once this reparation is paid, is then life great. Then we come on from there. At that point, the debt's paid, we're all happy, we go on, and now if I give you, we do a balance sheet, you say, okay, you owe me half of your estate, which is worth 2.75 million, pay it to this account holder. What happens? How does that practically work? I've never understood the argument.
You know, it's very interesting that white people say this.
Yeah.
Jewish people have been paid reparations.
Yes, but hang on a second. Even there, let's be careful.
They were even being given a whole country.
Let's be careful about that because there we're talking about. I'm not against the idea of reparations in very defined circumstances. Makes all the sense in the world, and that's why we have a court that will sometimes issue a cost against somebody else. That's a reparation. There, you did this. It's the net, economic effect is this.
We know here there was apartheid and colonialism.
Okay, let's move on.
Yeah.
Let me ask you. You're a bright guy. You've done your research. There's obviously a sort of blueprint for this. where you feel this has worked?
It worked in China.
Who paid when
they took the land? The Chinese took the land and distributed it to the...
It did lead to the death of about 50 million people.
Well, but where's China now? The counter-argument is that precisely because of that land redistribution program, you build capacity to modernize China. Just like Japan. We don't talk about Japan because Japan went through the same land redistribution program in 1945. Right. South Korea went... Those are capitalist countries which are very successful. And you look at their inequalities, they are very minimal. And the argument that we make is precisely because of the initial redistribution of land.
So in each of those cases, the redistribution happened in one form or another, and the pain is a separate issue. We're perhaps happy to gloss over what happened with those deaths. That's fine. That's cool. The ends justify the means, I presume, is what you're saying. But in each case, what led to their wealth was running a capitalist country. So you're saying, let's redistribute everything. Let's take all the land away and everybody gets an acre somewhere, right? Let's just say. And from there on, then it's open season. We go back. Because that's where China is now. Private ownership of land, private land, until the president, without real sort of any judicial process, says, change my mind. To the guy from Alibaba, change my mind. We used to have free market capitalism, but you're getting a bit mouthy. So, sorry.
So the Chinese is a very good model of how the state disciplines capital, and the state defines the developmental program of the nation, and private capital comes in on the basis of a plan proposed or put forward by the state. Here, the capitalists are free to do whatever they want.
Okay, so are you saying that South Africans, in general, we're a noisy bunch, we're a messy bunch, right? We go out, we say what we think. We used to, somebody likes extra hot, somebody likes lemon and herb. South Africa is not a homogenous society, not even amongst the black community, right? Do you think we display the requisite attributes? Because a similar thing was tried in Europe, in Eastern Europe, and it failed dismally, right? The reason it probably worked in Asia is the natural discipline amongst the population to have this system imposed on you, despite the fact that 50 million people died. Do you think South Africa and Africa display the kind of attributes that you think we need?
You know what we're fighting about.
What are we fighting about?
The right to have a roof over your head, the right to have health care.
Wait, hang on a second. When you talk about the roof over the head, is it my head you talk about? Because it seems to me that all I hear from you isn't about what black people must get, it's about what white people must give away. So I'm a bit confused. Which roof over whose head are you having a problem with?
White people don't have a problem with any roof over their heads.
We don't.
You don't have any problem with food. So I'm trying to propose here a vision. What we're fighting about. Yeah. We're fighting about the right of black people to have decent life.
Dignity.
Exactly. That's 100%.
All. Couldn't agree with you more.
And the problem is that the wealth of the nation is locked into the hands of a few, and that wealth, and this is our argument, is unearned privileges, is unethical privileges, which were gotten out of oppression and exclusion and dispossession.
Okay, so if you're going to use that as your lodestar, right? Let's just say I started a business 10 years ago. So idea popped into my head, I started a business, and there'd be many of them. I'm not inventing this. I decide tomorrow, this place could really do with a pancake bar down the road here. And I start this pancake bar and I make millions, right? Started in 2015.
Can you honestly argue that you are not a beneficiary of apartheid?
No, I can't argue that I'm not. I'm definitely.
So whatever.
So you're saying forevermore branded, that's it. We end up in a situation where we start executing people that wear glasses. Is that what you're saying? Because that's what happened in the East.
People who wear glasses did not take my land. They did not put me in a position where I'm perpetually excluded in my own country. They haven't.
Right.
We're talking about a very specific historical reality here. White people, all of them, are beneficiaries, and their children are going to continue to be beneficiaries of apartheid and colonialism.
Okay, so let's look at countries to the north of us, where there was a significant settler population, right? One form or another, we had a version of it, similar but different version in Angola, Mozambique, Zimbabwe, Zambia, right? Where you had Kenya, where you had significant white settler populations under the old colonial system. These people got rid of, right? What has been the success story in those areas?
It's very interesting. Let's take Zimbabwe, which is the most graphic example. Zimbabwe took land of white people, and Zimbabwe has been in a deep and worsening crisis ever since. Half of the Zimbabwean population is actually migrated to South Africa. So
how? Why? Under your system, why would anybody leave that utopia?
Of course, here's the interesting thing. You don't consider at all the fact that the Zimbabwean economy was attacked from without.
So maybe, are you going to go down the road of saying you've got a perpetual enemy?
No.
Right? And whatever happens, it's somebody else's
Zimbabwe's
fault.
economy the Zimbabwe success was never going to be allowed. Because if Zimbabwe succeeded, then South Africans would have also moved.
So Zimbabwe was not allowed to succeed because people were going to make sure that this empowerment project, this indigenous empowerment project, wasn't going to happen. But this happened in the age of some of your allies, China, etc. Why didn't they then make sure that Zimbabwe? I'm saying
the Chinese were intra-Chinese problem. Zimbabwe was settler colonial and taking white privileges.
Okay.
Now the global system of power will not allow anyone to touch whiteness.
Okay.
So if Zimbabwe succeeded to kick out those whites and took the land, and us in South Africa already really singing praises to Zimbabwe because it gave us some kind of psychological satisfaction that our historical enemies have been dealt with.
But what I'm not hearing from you here is a solution. I'm hearing a lot of problems that you have. Whiteness, this global system that argues against you, etc. Are we still in a unipolar world? Is America still? You've got a whole lot of white people sitting there on the hill saying,
"Yeah, the Zimbabweans are attacked precisely by the Americans."
Okay, so it's America. So in South Africa, then one would imagine, if we extend the logic, then if you win the next election, right? We're going to have Americans conspiring against South Africa.
And the British.
And the British, yeah, okay. I remember you did have some interaction with Bell Pottinger. It's sounding more and more like that, isn't it?
It's very interesting that Bell Pottinger took the business of Johan Rupert,
yes.
And then they were presented as a demonic force in South Africa. I mean, what I don't understand is what motivated Bell Pottinger to take the position.
Okay, so I want to put it to you another way because, Bell Pottinger, that's another whole discussion. And I think it's one of those, it's kind of, I suppose, wiped from history a little bit because of the old Gupta association. But anyway, what I'm more interested in is trying to see why, if your point is that we doomed if black people show real leadership, real solidarity, real something in this country, you're going to have this conspiracy against it. It's an international conspiracy, which I presume you're suggesting is still in place. Is that right?
Yeah, look where Zuma is.
So then why would we do it?
Well, it's a question of protecting white privileges and punishing whoever stands up against these white privileges. Whoever stands up against the white system gets severely marginalized, criminalized,
Okay,
punished.
so once again, I want you to just explain this to me practically. Practically, you win the election. Or rather, give me advice. We hit it off, we become good mates. You want to say, Mike, I'm going to give you advice. Right? In 10 years' time, ... Should you be in the country? Should I take my kids out of the country? Must I take my assets out? You know, you're giving me that matey advice.
I have only one big advice for you.
Yes.
Organize white business, white people.
Yes.
You must.
Because we do. We meet every week.
Exactly.
You know that. We have
and the one question that you must ask them is simply this. Guys, for the past 30 years of this democracy of Nelson Mandela, what have we as white people done to pay reparations for the ill-gotten privileges that we have?
Okay, so we must make that decision.
It's your burden.
Okay, so it's
because
our burden.
It's your benefit.
Even though we feel that we pay our burden in monthly taxable amounts. Please, that's not enough. So once again, what are we going to do? We have to start shouting out numbers? Do we have to shout out percentages? Do we have to say, open up a jail, we all want to walk inside, or concentration camp? I'm not sure that I understand your grievance, right? But I don't understand what you will have happen. Do you know what I mean? I mean, it's all very well. So okay, we have this collective thing, right? All 4 million of us pitch up at some place to be decided, and we all say, sorry, that's not good enough. Sorry, and we got to throw money, or sorry, we got to throw car keys. Sorry, we got to take out pieces of our brain because we got an education. What is it that you want? I don't understand it.
It's nice to be white, you know.
It's wonderful.
I wish I was a white man, actually.
I don't know if you do,
know,
eh?
Yeah, no, absolutely.
You have a burden. You can't look cool. You look bald and it looks like you got cancer. It's not like a black guy, you know what I mean?
It's very nice. You don't have the burden of even imagining what reparation would mean. You have not even started that conversation. What you have is to attack the ANC's corruption and all that goes with that. But there's not been any accounting by the white community for any of the sins that continue to benefit the white community.
Okay, so let's just say that we never account, right? We get permanent protection by the political system, okay?
Because you pay these politicians.
Because we pay those politicians. They're managing the strings of the puppets, right?
100%.
Wonderful. Okay, now, does this problem ever go away, or is it always the white man's burden, as I once wrote in the book?
Well, you see.
Or is there a statute of limitations on your particular moment?
There isn't.
Okay.
There isn't.
So for the rest,
we say it means that
forevermore.
You know, until you pay,
yeah,
you owe.
Okay.
So South Africa is an unequal system.
So the country is basically doomed, is what you're saying.
No.
Because you're not going to hear what you want to hear, ever, because there is no answer to your question, because you're saying, well...
There is an answer.
Which is, I must come up with the answer. That's not an answer. Well, I'm saying to you, well, I am repaying, but you're not happy with the answer.
No, you're paying taxes like anyone else is paying taxes, and you want to claim those reparations. This is white arrogance and ignorance.
Okay.
Really.
Right.
You have not yet taken into account what it means to have benefited from apartheid and from colonialism.
Okay, but once we do, then what?
Then of course you'll be able to say these are the privileges that we have, and to correct this, these are the things that we must forgo.
Like what?
Land, economy.
For example, I own a little townhouse, right? What now? I don't have land. I'm not a farmer. Now that's what I'm saying. Practically, I don't have land. Practically, I've got a house.
So let's start.
I live in there with my little old wife.
That's the interesting thing, that the majority of white people don't, for instance, own land.
Yes.
Right?
So what are you talking about?
But they're all opposed to black people taking that land.
Okay, so
because you and the white privileged class are together.
I couldn't give a shit about a farm. If somebody gave me a farm, I can promise you, if you walked in here with a title deed and said, yeah, there's a farm for you, I'd say, can I please rather have 10% of the money? I don't want your farm. So, but what I'm saying is that, so you, by your own admission, the majority of whites don't have land, right? So,
but they are vehemently opposed
to
land redistribution.
No. I'll tell you what we vehemently opposed to. I can tell you there. I can give you the right answer, which I presume you wouldn't like anyway. And that is that we are vehemently, we completely understand the threat of property rights in its bigger sense, right? It's a threat of property rights, not property as in land, but property rights. Take that away, and every country ceases to function. If you put a question mark under property rights, we are stuffed completely. And by property rights, I'm not talking just about land. I'm talking about then suddenly what if we can have open season on property, then we can have open season on business, then we can have open season on my car, we can have open season on my
We're not coming to take your houses.
Well, then what are you after then? I don't know what you're after. 5 minutes ago, you're after my house.
No,
you want me to reparation. So I'm mega rich. Let's just imagine.
In fact, we should be making you pay for extra housing.
Okay.
When people in Alexander live on top of each other like sardines,
yes,
and you are overhoused, every single empty room in your house should be taxed, in fact, to make sure that we make room for other people who are excluded. But
is that only for white people?
Of course, this is part of reparations.
So in other words, and Indian people?
No, they were oppressed.
So
like you are, like
Cyril Ramaphosa got a whole game farm, he only leaves money there in all those rooms. Does he pay tax? No, because he's black.
Well, we can go after Ramaphosa. It's one or two black people. I mean, we're talking about beneficiaries of apartheid. Let's not change the.
So we're talking whites. Let's not talk. Let's not cloud the language.
Of course.
Because there have been other beneficiaries of apartheid that weren't white. Okay, but let's stay there. If I come to South Africa, let's just say, and I'm white, but I'm a recent.
And you buy land.
And I buy tomorrow. I come in here from Europe.
You bought stolen property.
Okay, so I have to give it back. So
that's your problem. So until we address the big questions of South Africa's history, anyone entering into any relationship is entering into or perpetuating the injustice of the past, and they must be held accountable as if they are perpetrators. Because otherwise, you are not going to break the cycle.
Okay, so Andile, let's move because we're coming towards the end here, literally coming towards the end here. So, in your world, right? Once again, what does the economy look like after the reparation, whatever form it takes? Okay, you're the orchestra of this particular. You're the conductor of this particular orchestra. We've now done our reparations. You happy? What system do we run in South Africa?
We will run a mixed economy. So you will have some kind of private ownership and participation with massive state ownership into the economy. You will blend these two.
Which is what we've got at the moment.
But you will firstly make sure that you bring the majority of black people into the economy. You must, in a meaningful way, not in these pensions, the indirect way.
I've started a corner store by myself. I have to bring black partners.
In fact, you should.
Okay.
In fact, you should. In fact, we should be saying 51% must be black owned of any business in this country.
Okay. I think. Okay. So, and that's going to work, is it? That's going to give us growth.
Well, it's not working in the Arab Emirates state there in Dubai.
Yeah, because they've got a big, if you just look outside, just over the big high-rise buildings, they've got spigots over there that just pump out oil. Right, so they don't have to be that
We
big.
have mines that pump out gold. And
it's
we
not
have
the same thing.
platinum.
It's
of it.
It's not nearly the same thing.
A tiny minority. What about that? What about the fact that when economic indicators come on TV, black people go and make coffee because we have no attachment whatsoever to a relationship whatsoever to the wealth of the nation?
Yeah, well, I'd say that they're lucky enough to make coffee if the power's on. Okay, and if not,
That's your man, by the way, Ramaphosa,
yes,
who was paid 1 billion rand.
Please don't ever say he's my man.
By white capital to buy an ANC. He is the president brought into power by white capital. And by the way, all these crises of energy and so on are beneficial to white capital. They already sold out SAA to white capital. They will sell Eskom at cheap as well because it has been messed up. So this dysfunctionality of state-owned entities is functional to capital accumulation, which means that we will all say Eskom must be sold. We are tired of this load shedding, and the friends of the president will buy it, and we know who the friends of the president are. So we are sitting here with a system of white capital controlling the politics of this country to controlling the state president. And we know, I mean, it's shocking that nobody talks about it. 1 billion rand, white capital, gave to Cyril Ramaphosa to buy the ANC conference. What is that? Why would capital do that?
Sorry, that hasn't been proven in any court of law, but yet Marcus Joost is guilty. I'm saying. So that's sort of a rumor we're allowed to go with, but we can't say that.
It is not a rumor. The public protector had ruled on it. Ramaphosa has not denied. His benefactors have not denied giving that money, and they are known, and there are values they gave to Ramaphosa to buy the ANC conference. So we have a president who's messing the country up in the interest of benefiting his friends who are his financial backers. So capital benefits from the crisis that we have in this country. It is very functional to the interests of white capital. So it is their agenda to make sure that they accumulate even more.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, there we've got a definite voice. And what I find interesting is that nearly about 19,500 people agreed with you in the last election. That I find fascinating. But Andile, thank you for coming. You've been a great sport. It's been wonderful to joust with you. I hope we can do this again.
Thank you, man.
Right? And I'm not sure if Black First, Land First are going to contest
we are
the
going
next
to make
election.
a big announcement now. We're talking to everybody, including my friend
Gupta.
Mackenzie.
Oh, okay. Well, look, you can speak to the whole world and make your announcement right now, but that's Andile. Now I'm going to try it, okay? And you've got to add this to my reparation book, okay? Because I'm going to get this wrong. So, Andile Mngxitama.
I'll give you 7.5.
7.5. I think it's more like a 5.5. From Black First, formerly Black First, Land First, maybe Black First, Land First, maybe Patriotic Alliance. But Andile, thank you so much for coming to the studio. It's been wonderful to speak to you. To everybody, I hope you enjoyed this. And subscribe. Thank you so much. Goodbye.